I have the time, which is annoying. It tells me how long I've been talking for, but not what the actual time is. Okay, should we start then? Yeah. Okay. So the historicity of Revelation according to providential progression. It's a bit of a mouthful. Heavenly Parent wishes to take on a human form and create one great cosmic family and live together eternally, experiencing the joy of true love. So look at this idea that God wants to take on a human form in a minute. Since we're living in the era of attending true parents of heaven, earth, and humankind in substance, God's title should be Heavenly Parent. Though God is unchanging at the culmination of his providence, he's revealing himself as a heavenly parent. So as I said, it's not really new, because throughout the Hebrew Bible, God has been revealing himself as a parent, father and mother. Okay, so let's have a look at this idea. God has no form, true, but wants no form. And so this is again from Deuteronomy. This is Moses speaking to the Israelites before they went into Canaan. Remember the day you stood before the Lord your God at Horeb. So that's at Mount Sinai. At Horeb, when he said to me, assemble the people before me to hear my words, so that they may learn to revere me as long as they live in the land, and may teach them to their children. Then the Lord spoke to you out of the fire. You heard the sound of words, but saw no form. There's only a voice. So this is the idea that God is invisible, the invisible God that is able to form a relationship with every single human being. But God actually has no form. So that's why there are no idols. That's why when, I can't remember who it was now. Oh, gosh. Anyway, the Roman general who laid siege to Jerusalem, Vespasian, I think it was, and then he went into Jerusalem, then he went into the temple, then he went into the Holy of Holies, and he was shocked. Why? Because it was empty. And he said, where's the God that these Jews worship? And so that's why Jews were accused in the ancient world of being atheists, because they didn't have an idol or an image that they bowed down and worshipped. They're accused of being atheists, because for Jews, God is invisible. God has no form. You heard the words, saw no form, there's only a voice. So where does this voice come from now? Where do we hear the voice of God now? Through our conscience. That's the whole point. It's through our conscience we can hear the voice of God. And then Moses goes on to say, since you saw no form when the Lord spoke to you at Horeb, out of the fire, take care and watch yourselves closely, so that you do not act corruptly by making an idol for yourselves in the form of any figure, the likeness of male or female, or like any animal on earth or any bird that flies in the air. So again, God has no form. So this idea that God wants to have a form is not actually the biblical view. It's the pagan view, because everybody else thinks God has a form. So the invisible God wants to form personal relationships with all his children through conversations, through the conscience and the heart. So everybody then is able to have their own personal relationship with God. When God has a form, that means it's, a physical substance. And so God then is very close. So again, this is again from Deuteronomy. Now what I'm commanding you today is not too difficult for you or beyond your reach. These are all the words he's giving. It's not up in heaven. So you have to ask, who will ascend into heaven to get it and proclaim it to us so we may obey it? In other words, we need a prophet. We need someone who's going to tell us what to do, who God is speaking through. Nor is it beyond the sea that you have to ask, who will cross the sea to get it and proclaim it to us so we may obey it? No, the word is very near to you. It is in your mouth and in your heart, so you may obey it. Yeah, we don't need... So that's why within Judaism there is no mediator. Every single human being forms their own personal relationship with God. There's no idea of a mediator. Yeah? No mediators. unnecessary. At Mount Sinai, God made a covenant with every single human being, all the Israelites who were there personally. They had no mediators. This idea of a mediator comes from a very pagan idea, which has been adopted into Christianity. And again, in the Quran, it's the same thing. It is we. Oh, this is God speaking up. It is we who created humankind and fully know what their souls whisper to them. And we are closer to them than their jugular vein. So again, the Muslim idea, God is so close to the jugular vein, which is somewhere around here. You don't need to have a mediator. And so within Islam, they have Muhammad, but he's not a mediator. Yeah. So again, this is that teaching. And so again, as that person said earlier on in the lecture, Balaam says to the king of Moab, so this is when the Israelites are on their way to Canaan, and the king of Moab's upset because they want to go through his land, and the Moabites, of course, are descended from Lot. And so the king of Moab's got a sort of prophet, inverted commas, who goes around prophesying and what God wants is going to be the outcome of a battle. So the king of Moab said to Balak, please go and bless us and tell us we're going to be victorious. Arise, Balak, who's the name of the king. Balaam says, arise, Balak, and listen. Hear me, son of Zippor. God is not human, that he should lie, not a human being, that he should change his mind. Does he speak out and then not act? Does he promise and not fulfill? I have received a command to bless. He has blessed, and I cannot change it. So Balaam then is saying, as a prophet, God has told me and speaks through me to bless the Israelites, and they're going to win the battle. I can't change it and say that God is blessing you and you're going to win the battle. Yeah. So again, God is not human. God has no form. So we need to look then at cultures which do have God with a form, human form. So one was the Pharaoh, was God. Not just the Pharaoh, there's lots of other people who are regarded as God. But this is the Hebrews' earliest experience of a human God was the Pharaoh. And so, of course, when you look at Egypt, ancient Egypt, you had pyramid building for the Pharaoh. So the Pharaoh is God. So when the Pharaoh died, he had to have an extraordinary burial so he could be preserved forever in a pyramid. Nobody else had a pyramid except for the Pharaoh. So all the Egyptians then, they spent a large part of their lives just building pyramids. So that when the Pharaoh died, there'd be somewhere to bury him because he was God. But then it doesn't mean just that. It also means the whole society is a pyramid. You've got the Pharaoh, who's God, at the top. He married his sister. That's the way it worked then. And you've got this incredibly structured society, a pyramid society as well. Not that people are equal. People aren't equal when you have a human being who's God. You have one person who's at the top of the pyramid and other people who are different levels. And of course, this also means if God has a form, it means whoever's physically closest to the Pharaoh is closest to God. Yeah, that's all politics. Yeah, if you've got a king and somebody wants to go meet the king, then they have what you call gatekeepers. Yeah, and so what happened when Preston wanted to go and meet his dad, true father? Could he go and meet his dad? There were gatekeepers who wouldn't let him connect. Just the way it works in this kind of pyramid, hierarchical kind of society. People aren't equal. And so, of course, that means that the people who are closest to the Pharaoh are the ones who got the most power. Because, I can go and see the Pharaoh for breakfast tomorrow. I can bring, and find out what he thinks about this. So if you've got a problem then, and you want some problem solved, then you go and see if you can connect to the person who's closest to the Pharaoh, or know somebody who's close to the Pharaoh, and then to get the word there. That's just politics. Isn't that the way it worked in the EU, Julian, when you were working there? Very much so. It's just politics, sheer politics. Somebody's got the power. That's effectively God. Someone's got the power, and there's a person who's his assistant, or her assistant, and etc., etc. You've got these circles of, and you want to get there to get a decision made in your favor. You've got to work your way through this cycle and this system and this hierarchy. That's the way it works in the human world of politics, when you have a human being who's got one person who's got all the power. So that's the pyramid view. That's God with a human form. And so, not so comfortable. Anyway, I don't like that. The covenant at Mount Sinai was something completely different to what they'd experienced in Egypt. Here, every single Israelite made a covenant with God. It's not that God just appeared to Moses and he brought the word. They all heard the voice of God through the fire. Every single Israelite. Not just the men. And read what it says there. It says the household, which means that the men and the women and the children, everybody heard the voice of God speaking. Everybody made a commitment, a promise to do that, to listen to God and to follow the commandment. Every single human being. Yeah, Moses just brought it down, but they heard the voice of God. Every single individual. So that means every single individual had a personal relationship with God, not just Moses. Moses wasn't the mediator in that sense at all. So this then is the idea when the covenant was made, the blood was scattered over all the people and on the altar. So this indicated that every individual was part of God's lineage, not because they had a common ancestor, but because every single person, God was their parent of every single individual. They were all equal in front of God, because every single one was a child of God. Yeah. And as I said, there's no mediator between individuals and God. And so people meet God through their conscience, as Moses said, and as Muhammad said in the Quran. God dwells to dwell in the family. And so that's why the first commandment as they left Egypt was observe the Sabbath. Yeah, God would dwell in the family, and they'd all pray together as a family, they'd eat together, they'd drink together, they'd dance together, have fun together, play games together, because that's where God wanted to be, to have fun and joy in the family. It's what God's dream was. So Christianity then, in that sense, is a return to paganism. Jesus is God. Okay, and then you got the Vicar of Christ. And then you got the cardinals and the archbishops and the bishops and the priests, who are all mediators, and there's this whole hierarchy. And each one has some authority to decide whether you go to heaven or you go to hell, whether you're going to be excommunicated or not excommunicated, etc., etc. That's the way it is for much of Christian history, until the Reformation came. People could have their own personal relationship with God through faith, be saved by God individually, irrespective of. And so we'll look at that later, how Christianity then became this kind of, through the interaction between the early Christians, particularly St. Paul, and the pagan ideas that he came across. He sort of translated, he created that kind of idea. Okay, so Heavenly Parent's ideal of creation. God desired to become true parents who manifest through the visible, substantial form of the first ancestors. Don't know. Biblical teaching, God is infinite and invisible. Every human being is finite. Every human being is an individual truth body and an individual expression of God. So no human being or couple can be a complete expression of God. It's impossible for any single individual or couple to completely express the divine, because God is infinite. God is infinitely complex. And so that's why every single individual that you meet is different. Yeah? We're creating the image of God, but it's not like a coin, where you stamp a coin, create a coin or a stamp, and everyone is identical. When God created us, He created us, every single human being is individual and different. And that's just the way it is. Because each of us is able to express the nature, God, the divine nature, in a different kind of way, and have an own personal, individual relationship with God. And I think that's the biblical understanding. Every human being is an individual truth body and expression of God. So no human being. So God is a parent then of every single human being. Every single human being is equal. So if you have kids, is every single child in your family identical? No, they're all different, aren't they? Every single one is different. Yeah? So should you love them in exactly the same way? Oh, we're going to get them exactly the same present? No, you go, oh, okay, this person's more like this one's more like that, and you just love them individually and form that individual person kind of relationship. But within the family, every single child is equal, has equal value, and is loved the same, equally, but differently. So that's, I think it's good. Oh yeah, True Mother talked about the dream of Heavenly Parent and the wish of God was to become the first ancestor by living with Adam and Eve as they became perfected. And in that position, God would be the first ancestor and be visible as a true parent of humanity. That's the principle of God's creation. So the principle, normal understanding of the principle view is that every single human being should get blessed by God in marriage, and every single couple then should become a true parent. Not just one particular couple. Every single couple should become a true parent. It has a possibility and potential to become a true parent to their own children. The artistic motivation, the creation of Heavenly Parent, or by Heavenly Parent's a better way to say it, was motivated by Shimjong, which is heart. Creation was necessary because of Shimjong. Emotions, it's standard stuff. The creation is essential because love must be accompanied by an object. Yep. You want you want someone or something to love and take care of. A parent can only exist if there's a child. It's a standard stuff. Through human beings, the ideal of creation can only be realized through humans who are connected by lineage to the Heavenly Parent. So I said every single individual, biblical understanding is every single individual has their own personal relationship with God. Every single individual is part of God's lineage. It's not a pyramid. As a spiritual parent, God created human beings as physical children. He wanted to establish the kingdom of heaven on earth through direct descendants who inherited the heavenly lineage. So that would be every single individual would inherit the heavenly lineage. So when you die and go into the spiritual world, do you think there's a huge pyramid there? Or is everybody the same, equal? Who do you think you'll meet when you go there? I have no idea, I'm just making this up. Haven't been there yet.
The one who loves you, who have the closest heart relationship.
Yeah, it's like, when we're here, there's an age difference. Yeah, but when you die, apparently you all look like you're 25 years old. So if you see your parents or or your grandparents or great-grandparents or great-great-grandparents, is it like a sort of hierarchy? Or is it very, very flat? And you can meet all these people? What do you think?
Surely, if God created humans, it doesn't mean, because if I create something, it doesn't come from my lineage unless I give birth to them.
Sure.
God didn't give birth to
Right.
us.
Uh-huh.
So we can't say we're from his lineage. That's my understanding.
Uh-huh.
We can say we're the children of God
Yeah.
because he created us.
Yes, it's a metaphor, yes.
So we can't say that any one person like Jesus or true father or true mother have a direct lineage to God.
Uh-huh, sure. No, I agree with that. So for example, personally I think, when you go into, my kids are my kids, but, sorry?
It is possible to say that we have direct lineage with God. When Lorna Byrne was shown that directly, she was shown God creating a soul.
Uh-huh.
And she was taken in front of God and witnessed God creating a soul.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what I'll cut the detail, but basically God opened his robe and he took a tiny little piece of his heart and held it in his hands. And after a moment handed it out to an angel to be handed out to the guardian angels.
Mm-hmm.
And then the guardian angels was later on, went to a huge room where all the future baby to be born were there in spirit. And once the guardian angel met never had a soul before, which with whom he was to work forever and ever, then there were like an explosion of light and
Yeah.
joy and of love and everything. And from then on, the guardian angel became linked forever and ever to that specific child.
Right.
And the soul was.
Yeah, that's a very traditional view that God creates a soul. Yeah.
That's what she witnessed.
Yeah. So, and sometimes people want their children to always be their children. I prefer my children to grow up so we can just interact as adults, have adult conversations with each other. My mother, though, always treated me as a child, careful watching the road. But, when you go into the spiritual world, we're all adults in that sense, and in that kind of conversation, that kind of relationship. It's no longer, when you go to the spiritual world, your parents won't be like a parent-child relationship anymore. It'll be like that, I think. It'll be much, in that sense, as I said, it's much flatter. Everybody's there. You don't think of so-and-so or treat this person as my grandfather anymore. I'm an adult. We're all adults. We'll just interact in that kind of way. That's what I think anyway, because they're all equal. So as a spiritual parent, God created human beings as physical children. As I said there, God created human beings. God didn't give birth to human beings. He wanted to establish the kingdom of heaven on earth through direct descendants who inherited the heavenly lineage, which is one of heart. It's a metaphor. However, due to the fall, Heavenly Parent had to go through the providence of restoration to restore fallen human beings, establish God's direct lineage. Okay, the completion of the universe must be a prerequisite. Heavenly Parent's ideal of creation is predicated on the completion of the universe. I don't know what that means. What does it mean to complete the universe? There are lots of statements, but there's no reason or evidence to support a lot of these statements. The universe is always developing and always will develop, I would imagine. Telescopes at the stars, you see things are always changing. Even if it happened 1 billion years ago, because it takes that long for the light to get here. So I don't know what that means. Every creature must go through the growth period granted by Heavenly Parent in order to reach perfection. Yeah, standard stuff. This period of growth is essential for humans to fulfill their responsibility to resemble the creative nature of Heavenly Parent and have dominion over all things. When an individual human fulfills their responsibilities during their growth period and reaches completion, it corresponds to the first blessing. The first blessing is about more than that. The first blessing is about mind-body unity. So that's what it says in the Principle Book. God's first blessing is man's ability to perfect his character. Instead of having perfect, it should just be complete. Nobody can ever reach perfection. It's just impossible. To complete his character, become a mature human being. By performing proper give-and-take action between his mind and body, uniting them centered on God, conscience, the person forms a four-position foundation on the individual level. It becomes a temple of God. So in that sense, everyone becomes a temple of God, part of God's lineage in that sense. When such perfected individuals become completely one with God in heart, they come to have God's character and constantly have God at the center of their thoughts and their actions. So I think that's a better explanation of what it says here. It doesn't mention the fact its first blessing is about mind, body at all. This talks about having dominion over things, which is third blessing. Okay, next it says, embodying the true parent's ideal through humans. The core of Heavenly Parent's ideal of creation is the ideal of true parents. The ideal of true parents refers to the Creator's ideal of creating everything based on the standard of true parents. A lot of these things are just, I don't know what they mean, to be honest, these statements. True parents, when it says here true parents, does it mean true father and true mother as two individuals? Or is it talking about something more in the abstract? Not clear. True parents are composed of a man and woman. They can manifest when the direct children of this of the heavenly parent grow to maturity, marry and have children. They can manifest when direct children of the heavenly parent grow to maturity, marry and have children. I mean, can that be any human being, man and woman? Hope so. The intangible heavenly parent wished to embody a physical form through humans and achieve a unified oneness through the give and take action of divided substantial beings, male and female. Well, God didn't really want to embody human physical form in that sense. Anyway. As a result, he wanted to extend his love to infinity by giving birth to and raising children. Yeah. So, if you just look at, when we have children, every single child is different. But actually, when you actually look at the number of eggs in a woman, I don't know how many thousands there are. There are a lot, aren't there? There are a lot. And you look at the number of sperms in a man, there's also a lot. And just one particular egg and one particular sperm creates that particular DNA and child. But it could have been a million other possibilities, actually. So the millions of possibilities of different kinds of human beings just never were born. And that's reality. It's the way it is. There's an infinite number of different possibilities, but most of them just never happen. It's interesting. So human beings are the substantia of the embodiment of God's true love and true parent's ideal. So, yeah, we're the embodiments of God's true love because God is our parent. And the ideal is to become like that. The ideal of true parents is central thought that has been inherent in the Creator from before the creation and continues unchanged to this day. So God wants every single son and daughter to get married and have children and have their own lineage and become true parents. The realization of the Creator's ideal of true parents through a pair of human beings is the position where God and humanity form a united body and is a central provident position of the cosmos. It is also the place where the intangible heavenly parent form the embodied Trinity. Okay. I think I might be looking at Trinity later, I can't remember now. What's happened? Okay, I'll have to... Anyway, realize the ideal of creation through completion of families. The ideal of heavenly parents' creation is realized in the family and can be affected through love experienced in the family. Just as heavenly parent created human beings with the motive of heart or love, the purpose of human existence is the perfection of heart. In other words, the perfection of love. Human beings make it their goal to become mature lovers who will resemble heavenly parent. The family is the key environment for human beings to nurture their love. It is within the home that the basics of all types of human relationships experienced and all types of love can be experienced. This is the second blessing. I just need to go and correct my PowerPoint because it stopped when it shouldn't have. Where are we? Oh, gosh. Oh. Don't want that. I want that. Sure, maybe. Why is it not doing what it's supposed to do? Set up show, that's it. Okay, that should work. Sorry? Yeah, I found it. I had to change the other thing. Okay, this is the second blessing. Let's see what it says. Second blessing is man's ability to have an ideal family. Adam and Eve were to attain individual perfection and then become husband and wife and give birth to children with natures of goodness, forming a sinless family. This God-centered family, four-position foundation would have fulfilled God's second blessing. By becoming husband and wife on the foundation of having perfected themselves through God's vertical love, Adam and Eve would have completely realized God's horizontal love. From the viewpoint of heart, the fact that God allowed man to have children upon having fulfilled God's horizontal love is a great blessing. For by having children, man can feel the vertical love that God feels towards man. So personally, I think that's a much better explanation of what the second blessing is than what you find on this particular slide. The next slide, Heavenly Parents' ideal of creation is the foundation of the ideal world of creation. The ideal world of creation is a world based on the ideal of true parents. The official name of the ideal world of creation, Chungoguk, means a nation where two people become one. This means a place where the true parent's ideal is realized in the starting point of the ideal world of creation. The ideal world of creation is realized based on the family, and then the family is expanded to become the global humanity. The family first achieves the ideal situation, and by expanding it creates the ideal world. The ideal world of creation envisioned by Heavenly Parent is a world of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values, where all of humanity regards God as the vertical true parent and the true parents of heaven, earth, and humankind as the horizontal true parents living as one family under God. This means that it is a political and social system that realizes the ideal of based on the expansion of an economy centered on one vision achieved through all of humanity aligning with God's heart, and is a messianic kingdom based on the principles of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values. In the ideal world of creation, human beings establish dominion over the whole world. The third blessing is fully realized. Actually, this slide here is not about the third blessing, it's about the second blessing, going from family, tribe, race, nation, world, cosmos, expanding that way. This is all an expansion of the second blessing, about human relationships, about interdependence, mutual prosperity. It's all about human relationships. So these slides are not correct. This is all about the second blessing, it's not about the third blessing. So what is the third blessing then? The meaning of God's third blessing is the perfection of human beings' dominion over the natural world. So the way it is there's three fundamental, this is just the traditional philosophical understanding, the way it is, there are three fundamental relationships that we have. A relationship between our mind and body, a relationship we have with other human beings, and a relationship we have with the natural world. These are three different kinds of relationships. And if we can get these three different relationships working well, then we experience joy. We got good mind-body unity, we enjoy dancing, we experience incredible joy. If we can't, and our body dominates our mind, we become a drug addict or an alcoholic or something, then we're not happy. If we can get a good relationship with other human beings, with our parents, with our brothers and sisters, with our husband and wife, with our friends, our next door neighbor, then again we experience joy and happiness through that. If we can't get a good relationship with our parents, our siblings, our husband and wife, next door neighbor, teacher, other school children, etc., then life is really miserable. And then have a good relationship with the natural world. If we can do that, we can make things, and we experience incredible joy through playing the piano, or through doing the gardening, or through painting, or all these different kinds of things. Again, we can experience incredible joy. This can go then into manufacturing, running a business, making things, inventing things and making things. But if we can't get a good relationship with the natural world, then again, life is miserable. We own a house, but then a hole appears in the roof. We don't fix it, and of course it all falls down. Or we can't manage our finances, etc., etc., become bankrupt. So that's about that kind of relationship. So this is the third blessing, is about dominion over the natural world. It's not about relationships. So for whatever reason, the Chambumo-ron lectures contain many mistakes.
Can you flag this up to somebody?
Sorry?
Can you flag this up to somebody in Korea?
I've done that. I send this stuff to Julian, and I hope he passes it on. But, yeah. I don't know. The natural world is an object partner which exhibits human internal nature and external form in diverse ways. So everything, an ant's also got a mind-body kind of thing going on there. Hence, ideal human beings receive stimulation from the world of nature. Yeah, you go out and see a daffodil and flowers, etc. You feel stimulated, you feel, wow, beautiful. Extraordinary beauty in the world of nature. Again, but it's all about nature. Sensing their own internal nature and external form displayed through the creation, they feel immense joy. God also delights when he experiences the stimulation of his original internal nature and original external form from the universe. This is possible when it becomes his third object partner through harmonious union of human beings and the natural world. So what did God tell Adam to do?
Have dominion over the earth.
And he told him to do the gardening.
And also name all the animals.
Name all the animals, have that kind of dominion, which means, yeah, name all the animals, but sense of ownership and taking care of. If you have something that has a name, you're more likely to take an interest in and take care of it. But also he told him, I can't remember, he didn't say exactly, he used the word gardening, but also tilling the soil and various things. So basically doing the gardening, And then through that, you experience incredible joy when you plant all these bulbs and a year later start coming up. That kind of joy. So that's the third blessing. There's a lot of lack of clarity about the fundamentals, to be honest, in these lectures. The dream of Heavenly Parent is to experience joy through true love, eternally together by embodying the true parents and forming a great family of humankind. Heavenly Parent is the ultimate identity God intended to fulfill. Since the Chambumo-ron era, after the foundation days, a time of living with the true parents of heaven, earth and humankind as a substantial embodiment of ultimate oneness, addressing God as the Heavenly Parent aligns more with the spirit of Chambumo-ron era. God is an unchanging God, but he reveals himself as Heavenly Parent in the Omega and stage of the providence. Really? Did God not reveal himself as a Heavenly Parent until we got to the end of God's providence, which is now? Or did God reveal himself as a parent 4,000 years ago, Abraham time? So it's interesting, they get these kind of statements in these lectures, but they're not actually connected to reality, or what I would say connected to truth. These are not true statements. Anyway, there you go. So that's the end of that particular lecture. That's the end of lecture 2. It took us 3 days to get there. So everybody else just read out the bullet points. I don't do that. So where are we time-wise?
12:30.
So should we take a lunch now or a bit later?
We could do lunch now.
Lunch now? And then we'll move on to lecture number 3.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you all very much and enjoy your lunch. I hope you all brought some.
We'll do an hour and come back at 1:30.
Yep, that's good.
Okay.
And can't go into the cafe downstairs, but there's a table here, we can sit around the table. And those online, see you later.
The way I would understand revealing himself is more that he can reveal himself in a closer way. God can be very present, very close to us. We can have a personal, very direct relationship with God. That's more that aspect maybe. Not anymore the Lord of army,